Hi guys, welcome back. So it is Friday. Believe it or not, I actually just finished 4 hours of working on my dissertation literature review. And no, I'm not done yet, but I'm closer to being finished than I was before I started today. I was able to get actually, I think maybe 4 pages written. So it's not that I'm counting pages, but just to give you guys an idea of actually how much work. It still really doesn't speak to the amount of work that I've done because it involves a lot of research, a lot of analysis of the research. And granted, you guys, my topic is focused on Black identity and acculturation and implicit racial bias. And so it's very sensitive topics. And sometimes it requires me to take like breaks in and out because just reading the literature and just being overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed with just the gravity of the topic sometimes, it makes me have to take a break. Like I have to just slow down and be like, you know what? And I don't know why my phone be doing this. It's like it breaks up. I think it's Facebook. Will be causing my phone to break up. And it's like messing up my video. I get it, Facebook. Y'all don't want me talking about certain things. I get it. That's why I'm going to just start probably pre-recording my videos and uploading them. But anywho, so yeah, it can be very overwhelming just getting really into the topic and really thinking about it and analyzing what happened and just, all of this information. Not so much the information is the type of information, is what I've been reading and studying and reviewing. It's just talking about slavery and oppression and thinking about my chairperson and considering that she's a white female. I think she gives me a little bit more of a challenging time with my topic because she's like, what? Wait, it has to be backed up with empirical research, and I get it. I'm a PhD student, so I understand that. But not every statement needs to be backed up by empirical research. That's the reason why we have books, we have lectures, we have presentations. There's different forms of literature that exists out there outside of empirical research, But I get it. Obviously, within academia, they place a higher value on the research. So, I get it. I understand. That's the reason why she wants me to really cite research. But I'm like, okay, if it's something related to, let's say, a certain date and time, certain things that have happened, historically, it might not be a research study on it, but I can still use that document to validate my statement. It's like she don't understand that. And even also thinking along the lines of what's common knowledge, because usually common knowledge things don't really require a citation. So I'm like, it's common knowledge in the Black community. Like, we know this. We know that within the Black community, we talk about how we respond to racism, how it makes us feel. But it's like, oh, you need to have a research study. So, okay, anyway, that's a whole nother topic, you guys. But I really kind of wanted to talk to you guys about this very important topic of, can Black women be submissive to white men within the context of racism? And granted, it's kind of related, I guess, to my research in a way, but I just had to kind of get that off my chest because I just actually finished working on my dissertation for 4 hours. And I'm still talking about racism. It's like I have this love-hate relationship with this whole idea of racism, I guess. But yeah, I think it's something that impacts many of us, apparently. Some people act like race doesn't exist. I think that's their way of protecting themselves against racism, whether they're white or Black or whatever race that they identify with. But we know it's a constant in our society, so we can't get away from it. And this video topic actually came in response to a question that one of my YouTube followers actually commented on my video. I forget the video it was. I made several videos about submitting to white men or submission, Black women dating white men, dating outside their race. I made so many videos on that, so you guys can go to my channel and check that out. But I got the comment, and I get comments like daily. People commenting on videos I posted like last year or in 2017. I was like, okay, I guess that's good that people are still watching my older videos. But this comment came in recently, and this guy asked, he said, well, actually, it didn't come here recently. Actually, it was there posted. Well, someone replied to his comment. So the guy who framed this question, which is the topic of this video, he been posted his question like initially when I uploaded the video. And I want you guys to feel free to comment if you guys have any questions or comments. But he been posted his question, the topic of this video, way back when I initially uploaded my video, and then I got a reply to his comment that came in as a notification recently. So that's what made me look at his comment. I was like, oh, how did I miss that? That makes for great material for a video discussion. So I want to give you guys my take on this, because number one, it was way too much for me to type. Like, there's no way I can like give my full perspective on his question on in the YouTube comment. So I just prefer to just save it for a video. But I thought about it, and I was just like, huh. He said that before he actually asked the question, he was like, yeah, I'm a white male, I'm a dom, this, that, and the other, you know, I'm very much attracted to black women, you know, I think you're beautiful, da, 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 like, you know, I guess trying to soften me up or whatever. And then he goes, I wonder, like, is it easy for a black woman to submit to a white man in a racist society? You know, given our racial context, we live in a very racist society. Racism isn't dead. People like to say this is a post-racial society. No, it isn't. Racism is very much still alive. And his question made me think. I was thinking about it last night, and I was like, damn, that's deep. But it was mainly, I guess, directed towards me in terms of, can I submit? But I think he kind of framed it generally speaking, you know, to get different people's maybe perspectives on this. But I'm thinking in terms of myself, right? Is it easy for me to submit? And I can think for myself, and I can think from what I know about black women, and especially some of the responses that I've gotten, even from black women. There is like a trend for black women to date outside of our race and to turn towards, you know, white men for love, for support, for intimacy, for survival ultimately, right? And I've noticed that a lot of black men take issue with that. They get mad. They're like, oh, you a bed wench. For me, even creating a video about dating outside my race, it's like I was accused of being a bed wench, which basically is a term that they gave to, I think, black female slaves who slept with the slave masters, saying that they warmed slaves. Here goes my phone again. But they warmed the slave master's bed, right? And they called that black female slave a bed wench. I'm like, interesting. But it's not about sleeping. This is not about sex. A person dating outside of their race, I even made a video before to try to explain this. It really has nothing to do with race. It's really about survival. Who a person chooses to marry is all about survival. And I think theoretically speaking, from a Pan-African perspective, the goal is to date within one's race. The day is for black women to marry black men and black men to marry black women. But realistically, when it comes to how it plays out, right? I mean, it's a reason why people date outside their race. And I would like to say that reason, you know, is mainly based on their survival. It's mainly based on how they perceive the other race and their ability for marriage or union to that person from the other race, for the viability that it will survive. You will survive a number of things that oftentimes within the black family they don't survive. We know that within black families there's a lot of divorce, separation, the breakdown of the black family. I mean, that we know is a huge thing nowadays in our society. So it's no surprise when a black woman may think in terms of considering dating partners or a potential marriage partner, it's no surprise that she would think about the possibility of a white man. Because number one, you want it to last. Now, that's not to say that, oh, just because, you know, you're dating a white person, you're married to a white person, it's going to last, it's going to be peaches and cream. No. But I think there is this embedded fear that a lot of black women have, that they don't want to be baby mamas. I know I can speak for myself. I know I'm not the only one who thinks this way. we don't want to become baby mamas. No one wants to be a baby mama, right? But there is this trend within the black community where you have a lot of black men, unfortunately, impregnate black women and leave them hanging, and they have to depend on child support and welfare. And I know a lot of y'all quick to say, oh, white people on child support too, but we're talking about proportions. There's a higher proportion of black people on welfare. There's a higher proportion of black people living in poverty. It's just a higher proportion, meaning out of the total number of black people, there's a higher incidence. There's a higher number within that total population when you compare it to the numbers of white people within their population. Now, of course, if you want to just look at numbers and the total altogether, then of course it's going to be more white people because there's more white people in this country. And it's funny how I was talking to this guy who's from Nigeria, and he was just shocked to see that it's the numbers of black people, that we only make up 12% of the population. He said, I thought there was more black people in America. I'm like, dude, you have a lot to learn about black Americans. You have a lot to learn about white America. Like, you have no idea. And that's the reason why they call us a minority. I mean, really, it's more of a political construct to keep us down at the bottom and so-called be labeled inferior. But really, I mean, they say that it has to do with numbers, but like I say, it's mainly more about trying to keep us segregated and at the bottom. And with that, I'm like, with that percentage of African Americans that live in this country comes a lot of things. You know, there's discrimination, there's oppression. It's almost like we just have become this forgotten racial group, you know, and it's a reason why you see African Americans responding to what's happening, the pressures of this racism. It's the reason why you see that. It's not like, I think from the outside looking in, especially to an African, they're like, oh, black people, they just complaining, they're lazy, they're this, they're that. It's just like, no, these complaints are very real. And granted that he lives in New York, I'm like, he assumes that the way you see it in New York is like the way America is. I'm like, dude, you are so ignorant. You are so uneducated. You have no idea that New York is not representative. New York is not representative of how it is in America. It's not. I mean, when you look at the proportion, the number of black people that live in Brooklyn, I think it's like 30% black. That is pretty huge. We're talking about 1/3 of the population in Brooklyn is black. It's a lot of black people. New York has more black people than any other state in the country. And also the city itself has more black people. So, yeah, I meant to say that the city of New York has more black people. In terms of the state, I'm not exactly sure. I have to fact check that one. But I know for sure the city has more black people living in New York City than any other city in the United States. And people, I guess, within New York assume that, oh, that's just how it is across America. You know, you can't be from America to think that, because if you go outside New York, then you'll see those numbers decrease. They drop, they drop, they drop. Now, yes, in the South, there's more black people, but don't get it mistaken. Out here in California, we make up a very small percentage of the population, especially in LA. So keep that in mind. And I tried to explain that dynamic to people who were watching my video about the possibility of me even considering people outside my race, right? And he's like, oh, it doesn't make sense. People like, it doesn't make sense, you know, that you'll be open to dating a white man. I'm like, first of all, I haven't dated a white man. We're just talking about it, right? And I say that that's when I was living in Hollywood, California. I'm like, you have to also take into consideration the context in which I live. I live around a whole bunch of white people. There's a lot of white people. Not to say it's not black people out there, but it's different. And it's not so much about the racial makeup of a city, but also the mindset of the people of that racial makeup. I mean, you think about a city like Atlanta, Georgia. There are over 50% of African Americans living in Atlanta, Georgia. That doesn't mean that, as a single black woman, you can just move to Atlanta and boom, you're going to get married, because within that 50%, you have a good percentage who are homosexuals, right? So that narrows the dating pool down even smaller. Then you have within that percentage, let's say, who aren't homosexuals, they may not be interested in dating a black woman, you know, or they may already be married. I mean, it's a lot of factors that one should consider. So when we look at, okay, the numbers of available black men, we know they are very slim. That's just the reality. I think this is the thing. A lot of people don't want to face that reality. They're like, oh, well, I know a lot of single black men who are college educated, who are successful. It's not about being college educated. One can be very successful without a college degree, and vice versa. So it's not so much about being educated, you know. That's not even one of my standards when it comes to choosing a mate. When you look at the past men I've dated, let me think. I don't think not one of them really had a degree. I mean, well, I take that back. You know, maybe a few here and there, but it's not even about a degree. You know, it's not even one of my stipulations. You got to have a degree. I don't care about that. Yes, you have to be an intellectual. You can be an intellectual without even stepping foot on a college campus. So I think that, yeah, that factors into it. And also, I was just talking to my colleague, when you talk about the population of Atlanta and looking at the available black men, okay, yeah, they might be single, but within that percentage of men who are single, they hoes. They just out there random, out and about, doing their thing. I'm not here to attack or try to hate on anybody for doing their thing. I'm just stating facts. I lived in Atlanta for 3 years. I know exactly how it is, but we know that Atlanta has a huge culture of like strip clubs, right? That's a huge thing, going to strip clubs. There's a lot of men down there, they just going around fucking. You know, they're not really thinking about settling down, building a family. You know, they don't really understand the importance of that. Building a family. Marrying a wife. Having a family. You get what I'm saying? They should come to Africa. Yes, George, you have a valid point, and I think, yes, a lot of people, African Americans, are moving to Africa. Because even when I noticed, like I did my research, and I say, damn, it's a lot of available black men out there, beautiful black men in Africa. I mean, millions. So you have definitely a very valid point. That's what's going to have to happen, because we're talking about numbers, you guys. It's a numbers game. So you can't get mad for black women to step outside and choose the next best thing, which would be, let's say, an Asian man or a white man who can take care of her, who wants to be married, who understands the importance of family, which I can give credit to Africans, because that's the main difference I noticed within African culture, is that African men, they value family. They know what it's like. They know what it means to take care of a family, of a wife. I mean, that's factored into their identity and who they are. Whereas within black culture, and I've talked about this with African friends, it's like, I don't know what's up with black men, but they lost that. And I think it has something to do with the media, rap. It's almost like it's the end thing to do, to have multiple baby mamas. Like, you're weak if you get married. And it should not be viewed as that. You know, you should be looked at as a badge of honor, but it's almost like it's a bad thing. Now, one of my mentors who I follow, he's a part of the Pan-African, community. He actually said, I noticed what he said in one of his recent videos about, he said, well, I understand all you're saying, but most of them are scared of being scammed, but I don't blame them. And yeah, the whole issue about being scammed, but I think you can get scammed by anyone, anywhere. And then whether it's for financial reasons or just getting fucked over, that happens in America too. So I don't think, well, that might be on their minds too, because I think you have a lot of African Americans, they are dissuaded from going to Africa because of an illusion and false information, assuming that, oh, you go to Africa, you're going to get sick, or you're going to get robbed, or it's just this fear that's embedded within a lot of African Americans because they don't know. So it's out of ignorance. And that's why it's important that they do their research. And that's where my organization comes in, Be Happy. If you guys follow BeHappy.org, you'll see that I share a lot of information about Africa. I make it my business to promote positive images of Africa and put out positive information concerning Africa, because I think growing up, a lot of Africans probably don't know this, but in grade school, what we're taught in American schools is bad stuff about Africa. That's what we see. You know, war, crime, violence, poverty. And it's like dilapidated areas of Africa that no one really wants to live. Like, who would be attracted to going to Africa if it's just a whole bunch of bush? It's not really, they don't show much development. That's what we were exposed to growing up. So it makes perfect sense why you have African Americans who have this very distorted perception of Africa. Thank God I don't, because I want to go to Africa and I plan to make Africa my home someday. But back to my mentors, like, he made this statement saying that, oh, you know, there's racial discrimination and oppression, you know, and police brutality, and how police target black men more than any other race, which we know that is true, right? But he said this to set this picture that, so black men, you know, they go to jail, and there's overrepresentation of African American men in the prison system. And so that obviously affects the dating pool for African American women if you have a lot of black men in prison. And then they get out of prison, you know, it's hard for them to get a job, so they just turn back to crime and other means of trying to survive. They get sent back to jail, you know, and he was like, by the time they get out, then the black women, they all successful, they got degrees, they got all this income. They got everything they need, basically, that to the point where they don't really need a man, so to speak. And they have this perception. He was like, along with the feminist movement, white women have convinced black women that they don't need a man. And so he said the black race of women are like the only demographic within America of women who believe they don't need their male counterpart. When you compare us to other demographics of women, he's saying black women are the only demographic of women in America that have this fallacy, this false belief that we don't need our men, that we can live without, we can survive without. And that's really important, because if a woman gets to a position where she feels like she don't need a man, not to say, oh, she gay or she want to be with a woman or she want to be a man, ain't got shit to do with that, but we're just talking about survival. Being able to survive, being able to take care of oneself financially, to put up a roof over your head, food, you know, to be able to even reproduce and take care of your children apart from a man. That's what it means to survive. And if you have a lot of women that are doing that, and I wouldn't say it's all to blame to white supremacy or the prison systems, because I think that's what he tried to like paint the pictures like, oh, it's all white people's fault, or it's, you know, racial discrimination, or all of them getting locked up because of being targeted. That may be a portion, right? But I don't think that explains the entire picture, you know, totally. Because I think a lot of men, they use excuses, I think. Some, it can be true, but I think a lot of men rely on that excuse. And a lot of them choose. I think it's a choice for a lot of black men to do that, because how do you explain the black men who don't fall down that path, who don't resort to gangbanging, robbing, using drugs? You know, granted, I understand different socioeconomic situations can position a person where it's like they create this criminal, because that's kind of the thing that he mentioned, how criminals are made, they're not born, right? But we're talking about men, black men, if they grow up in the same type of social environment, right? We're talking about the same social environment. How is it that you have some men who grow up in the very same social environment where they're exposed to violence, drugs, they're poor, they don't have father figures, but yet and still they don't fall victim to the criminal justice system, or fall victim to becoming a gangbanger or a criminal? How is it that they escape? Even those black men who don't even have the social support, because I know one would say like social support is a buffer against that, right? And yes, and it can be, but you still have the same black men who just don't have that. So I think in line with the choice theory that the criminal justice system embraces, is to say that every individual has a choice at the end of the day. I can speak from my own family experience where I've seen two black sons, like these are my own family members, grow up in the same exact house, exposed to the same exact social conditions. And one took one path and another one took a different path. How is it? When they went to the same school, almost the same teachers, same mother, same father, same everything. Talking about feminists, I don't blame most of the ladies though, because our men ain't doing enough for our black queens. That's why they've more baby mamas. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The men aren't doing enough. And it's no excuse. You can say, oh, what a white man this. The white man don't give me no job, but you have black men that do fight against it. I ain't saying it's easy, because I come from the struggle too. It's not easy, but you have to find a way, and bringing that, using that as a crutch, using racism as a crutch, you're never going to be able to overcome racism. We know racism exists, and that shit is heavy. It's on our backs every day. We have to live in the skin that we're in, the same skin that white people abhor, you know, that they have used to discriminate against us. I have the same exact skin. I know what it's like, but you have to choose, I think, to not use that as a crutch, as an excuse. You have to fight against it, man. I think a lot of people, they just give up. They're like, all right, fuck it. The white man don't care about me. Society don't care about me, so I'm just going to do whatever. I'm going to go in here and rob this house. You know, I'm going to go just stand on the street and sell drugs. You just give up. You don't have any hope. You know, yes, because the future may look bleak, and society you may feel like society doesn't provide that hope, but you have to find hope from within yourself. So, yes, I feel like at the end of the day, it really the responsibility just going to have to fall back on the black community, specifically black men. Like that, you guys are supposed to be the head of the household, and I feel like that's where black American men differ from African men, because African men know their role, they know their responsibility as it relates to the wife, the family, and their community, and they live that role. Whereas black men, I mean, we see what's happening to black men. There's this whole effemination of the black man, right? And I know we live in America where everybody got the right to be who they want to be. If you was born a black male, but you decide you want to wake up one day and say, you know what, I don't feel like I'm a black man. I don't feel like I'm a man, so I want to become a woman, then you have every right to do that in America. And no one is going to bash you. I mean, people do still do that, but I mean, there are laws that protect you from getting bashed, from getting ridiculed. Whereas in other countries, it's not like that. You go to countries in Africa, you know that shit ain't gonna fly in Africa, Jamaica, or any other those other countries. But in America, you can get away with, a black man can say, all right, I just want to become a woman. I feel more comfortable being a woman. And in a way, when you think about it now, that I'm thinking about it out loud, is like a man not taking care of his kids, that's kind of like becoming a woman. You may not put on a dress, and you may not go through the whole sexual transformation of being a woman, but psychologically, sociologically, you are, in a sense, becoming a woman by not being a man and taking care of your family and your children, your wife and your children. See, a lot of black men, they assume like, oh, I pay my child support, I take care of my children. Dude, that's only half the battle. You're supposed to take care of your wife. The wife is the mother of your children. I say wife, but I mean, of course, the mother of your child. I mean, it's unfortunate a lot of black men just do not marry their baby mamas, but they should. And that's their responsibility. But you have black men who do not see the black woman, the mother of their child, as their responsibility. That is faulty. That's where we go wrong. They just have warped views and a warped perception of how things should be. So I feel like, because I have to end this, I'm getting ready to go home, but I feel like that's where native African men come in to bring black men back to their true selves, like to waken up these black men. You know, yes, you have black men who try to waken up other black men, right? I'm telling you, black American men. But I don't know. I don't know if they listening. I don't know if they're too much receptive. I think it takes some real strong African men. We know they have a very strong backbone to really, like, really get through here. You're never going to try changing your gender in Africa because it's against our culture. That's why gays aren't accepted here, because it's a taboo. And yeah, exactly. It's taboo, is unaccepted. They ain't having it. And I saw somewhere where in one of the countries in Africa, the skin bleaching is unacceptable. And I know that's the thing. It's a very controversial issue because in America, it's like everything is allowed, right? And it's crazy, but we're talking about at the detriment of one's identity, which I feel, you guys know this is my specialty area in which I study, my clinical focus. Like, your identity is everything. Holding on to who you are at your core is everything, but there's like this identity fluidity in America that gives people the opportunity to just be whatever they want to be. If you're born a woman, you want to be a man, you can do that. You're born a man, you want to be a woman, you can do that. If you're born black and you want to be white, you can transform. That was Rwanda, where skin bleaching is illegal. I know I saw that posted recently on social media, and I was just like, wow, imagine if that was illegal in America. You know, it's bad, because I see that even in Africa, they are becoming more westernized, where you got African women that are developing, or they're internalizing this self-hatred, these feelings of inferiority, so that impacts a person's psyche. You know, if you see all these images of, oh, light skin is beautiful, or white is beautiful, and black is ugly, that's going to impact your psyche to the point where it's going to result in some behavioral changes. Whether that means you change your hair texture, you change your skin color, you change something about yourself, you change everything. Yeah, you say you pray so, they do so in Nigeria. It's crazy, and I think from a community standpoint of view and looking towards the future, yes, it matters. I mean, it matters the direction. It matters. What we do today is going to impact the future, you know? And when you see, like, so many kids being born, you know, out of wedlock, and these broken families in America, I mean, of course we got something to blame it on, right? But we know they ain't coming to fix us. They're not coming. No matter how much we complain in Black America, nobody is not coming. They're not coming to fix it. They never fixed it. Civil rights ain't gonna fix it. We and ourselves have to fix it in the way we think. That's the only way it's gonna change. Nobody ain't coming to save us. Jesus ain't coming to save nobody. And that's a whole nother topic right there. The whole thing about religion, the role that religion plays, because that's a form of whitewashing too, and brainwashing. You know, I feel like I was even talking to the guy that I was friends with in the Bronx, who's from the Gambia. And I'm telling him about African spirituality, and I told him that I think that Africans need to get back in tune with their African spirituality, right? Because none of us are perfect. When we can talk about Black Americans and our faults all day, but Africans have y'all own. And the moment people start talking about the issues that impact Africans, y'all want to shut down. And nobody is not sitting up here doing this to attack nobody, but I'm just bringing the awareness to you guys because it's important. Because a lot of times when you're in it, you don't see it. You don't see what's happening to your own culture because you're in it. You're immersed in it. But from the outside looking in, people can see what's happening. And the whole thing about African spirituality, I'm telling you, I'm like, okay, I think African spirituality is more important than Islam because he's Islamic and he's like, what's African spirituality? I'm like, dude, you are that far removed from your own culture that you don't know. Like, you're born in Africa. There's one thing if you are a descendant of a slave, right? So yeah, we can blame slavery and the conditioning that African Americans had to go through, that stripped us of our heritage, our culture, traditions, our religion, our tongue, our native tongue. We got stripped of all of that. But when you are born in Africa, I mean, granted, we know, yes, African countries have been colonized, right? by the French, the British, you know. So yes, that's going to play a role, but be aware. Don't just say, okay, we know that we were colonized by the British. Yeah, we were colonized by the French. Okay, what impact did that have though? And who were you before then? You know, and I think there's this belief that, oh, just because people think that they associate, right? They correlate the further along we are in terms of chronological age of a country, the better it's getting, right? But you fail to even understand, you fail to realize it has nothing to do with that. So they think, oh, we're becoming more advanced, and because we were colonized and we're better, we're becoming more advanced, and that you all need to take a step back, right, and really analyze, what does that mean? What does colonization mean? Does it mean that it made you a better country? I mean, I guess in some ways, yeah, you may look at the country, right, the condition, the status of a country, and say, oh, well, this improved or this changed. But really, what did you lose too? You know, what are you still losing? Because I think if there's anything more important than a country developing, right, a country becoming so-called civilized, so to speak, is that country being able to hold on to its native culture. Like, I feel like a lot of times we subjugate that. We subjugate a person's native culture as if it's something bad, like it's ancient, it's foreign, right? Even when I was hanging out with the African guy from Gambia and was watching these African movies, like Nigerian movies, right? Which I think is pretty cool. I mean, I had seen them before, like when I was younger, but then I almost forgot about them, and then I was at his house and we was watching them. And so, you know, they take place like in the cities in Africa, but they also take place in the village. And I was watching this one that took place in the village, and the women were walking around barefoot. And so he made this remark to say, you know, they walk around barefoot like it's a bad thing. He like did this thing with his face, like, and I was like, what's wrong with that? He was like, oh, that's old, that's ancient. You know, they shouldn't do that because you have shoes, you know, and women and countries, you know, are more civilized. That's not the civilized way to be. And I'm like, I feel like it's interesting to see. It's like you have Black Americans who are conscious, like myself, are very much well aware and appreciate traditional African culture. Then you have native-born Africans who are trying to become more Europeanized, right? And they kind of like despise and they cut off parts of their culture because it's like, that's nasty. And I feel like that's, in a way, a form of internalized racism, which my research talks about, by the way. People here don't believe in our spirituality anymore. They see it as bad person or a witch. My point exactly, where did that idea come from? Where did the idea that voodoo is evil come from? Even in my family systems class, my professor, we were talking about that. He mentioned like, oh, voodoo, yeah, the evil. And he's talking about, don't do voodoo on me or something. He made like a joke about it, right? But it's just interesting to see how they will slide in those beliefs. They'll slide in jokes like, oh, voodoo is bad, or you're going to do voodoo. How did that come about? From what I understand, even voodoo, now correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but voodoo, they use voodoo in the Caribbean islands. The slaves used voodoo to overcome the slave masters. It was a survival mechanism. So how can something that be a survival mechanism, how is that bad? So you're saying it's bad for one to survive? And I think that's only looking through a Christianity lens. That's looking through the lens of white religion. Understand, Christianity, people say, oh, it's a black religion, or, you know, it originated in Africa, but did it really originate in Africa? I don't know about that. I think they say it originated in the Middle East, right? Even Islam. I was asking my guy friend in Gambia, and I say, because he's diehard fucking Islam, like he ride or die Islamic, right? And I'm like, I asked him about his religion. I say, did it originate in Africa? Is that an African religion? He was like, no. I'm like, okay, do you know what that means, right? Like he said it was Arab. He say, my granddad told me of how the white man used to some of this. this stuff. Hold on. But African call our stupid and this bad. Colonization killed our culture. Exactly. Our prayer ancestors. See, George, look like you are very much conscious, which I can respect. See, I like Africans like that. Like, dude, wake up. Know the truth, man. Because there's nothing more frustrating than talking to a person who is blinded. Now, it's one thing, a person who is blinded, right? But it's another thing talking to a person who is blinded and tries to defend that. And they are just so, like, it goes completely over their head. Yes, they see it as bad, as being bad, while when a plane flies, it's technology, but when my grandmother flies, they call it witchcraft. Exactly. And then they don't want you to believe in your ancestors, talk about your ancestors. Keep going. Of course I'm good. What's up, Pat Kofi? Of course, if I'm breathing, I'm good. I'm good. I'm alive. I'm well. I have blood flowing through my veins. I'm healthy. I am good. But yes, it's a struggle. You know, I think there is a movement, you know, obviously the conscious movement is just going around trying to wake people up, right? To try to get people to see what has been happening with this conditioning, and people embrace religion like their life depends on it. And I get it, you need something to believe in. So why not believe in what the colonizers told you to believe in? But I'm like, no, let's go back. If we study history, then you'll see that there was African spirituality long before there was Christianity. So what happened to that? People are forgetting with African spirituality, it's so strong. Like, Africa would be the strongest nation, but it's not. America is. And it's really not America, it's really white supremacy that's the strongest nation. And white supremacy is global. That's all over the world. If Africans, just the African continent alone, could get back to its African spirituality, it would be the most powerful. It would dominate every other group of people, every other country, man, every other nation. Because that's nothing compares to African spirituality. Nothing is stronger than that, man. I mean, and I feel like a lot of what you see in these religious texts, like the Bible and the Quran, they come from African spirituality. Everything originated from that. And it's just like they twisted it and they called it something else, and then they added their own little spill to it, right? And then they called it something else. But the whole idea about being able to perform miracles, that's African spirituality. That's African stuff. And we need to get back to that, because we are strong, mighty people. There are more African people across the world. When I say African, I mean native-born Africans and people who have migrated away from Africa. Us, African Americans, who are descendants of the slaves who were stolen from Africa, we are high in number, man. We are all over. And even though you may be, let's say, Afro-Caribbean or and Spanish African, you're still African. Exactly. They believe in religion. That's why most women here respect their pastors more than their husband. You see what I'm seeing? George, you woke. I can respect that, because you know the truth, man. It's nothing like coming into contact with a person who know the truth. Black people should wake up, else we will go see, we here. But you tell a lot of black people this, they're like, what? They put a white Jesus over anything. White religion dominates. And they're like, oh, we should love all people. God wants us to love. Y'all missing the whole picture, man. This thing boils down to politics, man, and survival. And like you say, we're going to end up fucking around becoming extinct, because y'all don't see how they use religion against us. We were talking about, it was a post on Facebook, and it was talking about, will black people ever unite? Black people all over the world, will we ever get on the same page and unite? And I was like, well, it's a lot of things that separate us. Religion is like the biggest one. They've divided us based on religion, you guys. Religion is what separates. That's the biggest thing. And because people embrace religion like their life depends on it, meaning you can have, we talking about two African people, whether you're African American, it don't matter, African people. But if one is a non-practicing Christian, right, don't even believe in Christianity because you believe in African spirituality, the other one is a Christian, they never going to be able to get along. When really, after your ethnic identity, your African spirituality should be up here. above anything else, but people put religion over everything. So that's the reason why there's so many division. There's so much division within the black community. Now, on one hand, people can say, well, it unites us. It doesn't really unite us as a black race. It unites us with other races, which really subjugates us. It makes us inferior because at the end of the day, the name of the game is politics, man. And within that, white supremacy trumps everything. They don't care about religion. So they use religion to keep us divided because they know if you were to move that factor of religion, we would be united outside from politics, because you got black people that still want to be Republicans, or still have certain political beliefs that keep us separate. And you'll put a white person's beliefs and interests over your own community. And it's just like, come on, we're going to die, man. We're going to fuck around. We ain't going to make it. But back to I have to wrap this up. Back to the original reason why I posted this about, can a black woman be submissive? I kind of got off topic. And, I say all this to say that I think deep down inside, black people, we want to marry within our own race. The name of the game is divide and conquer. We want to marry within our own race, but at the same time, we also have to understand a person's natural instinct, right? It's our God-given instinct to procreate, to reproduce. Within that becomes selection, natural selection. So I think more on the subconscious level, we choose who is right for us. And yes, naturally we would choose our own. But when you think on a higher level in terms of society, the social context in which you live in, no woman, I know at least not myself, wants to procreate with a man that's going to create a divided family. You get what I'm saying? Like, it makes more sense to procreate with an eligible person that you have a good degree of certainty that you're going to be able to build a healthy family, right? Because this is the thing, a healthy family is more important than a broken one. And granted, yes, race trumps everything, but we need healthy families. And if a healthy family means interracial, unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles. If it means a woman dating outside her race for financial stability, that's just how the cookie. What's up, Key? How you doing? Man, it's been a long time since we gotta catch up. We gotta real catch up for real. But if I was to have it my way, my choice, of course I want to date within my race. And I even told my friend, I said, I prefer actually African men. It's something about like that true native born Africans, just different. They got, different values, different beliefs. They haven't really been as much brainwashed. Now, let's say y'all ain't kind of brainwashed, because y'all been colonized too by them white people, but not as much as black men in America, because the difference is that within Africa, y'all don't really have a sense of, though y'all been colonized, y'all don't really have a sense of racism. Like, racism doesn't impact Africans as it does African Americans. They don't even have a concept of what really racism is. Y'all know what it is, of course, like you read about it and stuff, but you don't really know what it is. Like, you don't live it. You don't, like, racism is something we feel. We've been exposed and lived racism so much, nothing has to be said. We can walk into a room and feel racism. Like, it's something that we can detect at a very small level. So we have a very low threshold where we easily can detect racism. We know what that's like. We've lived, we breathe it, we know what it feels like. Whereas the African, y'all don't. And that's a good thing in a way, because it's like, y'all, it's black power all the way over in Africa. All them black people rule. You have black leaders. That's beautiful. But on the other hand, it can be a bad thing, because when you're interacting with Black Americans, you don't understand our struggle. You're kind of blindsided to it, you know? And so sometimes that separates us, because I've seen it happen where I've been talking to African men, and I'm talking about racism and the pain that we have experienced, and they just aloof, and they start to judge me, and they say we're making excuses and we're lazy and we're this. I'm like, you don't understand. I get it. Yes, there's on one perspective, yes, you can't use it as an excuse, but it's not an excuse if a person is telling you their story of struggle. The least you can do is empathize. But how can you have empathy if you don't even come from that experience? That's not even your reality. So how can you empathize with us if you don't even have that framework to work from? Marrying among our race will unite us more, but our men should work on themselves. I feel sad whenever an African American woman tells me she's a baby mama. You say it hurts me inside, so we should really work on this. 100. Thanks for preaching. I pray our ancestors open their hearts so they can learn more. Exactly. I pray too, because I can go on and talk about this, but I mean, ideally, I think there is a shift. You're not telling me that we're talking, because I'm not the only one that's preaching. You have a number of people like myself, men and women, who are just all across America and around the world preaching the same stuff, right? We're talking the same language of Pan-Africanism. So there has to be a shift. People are waking up, but we have to translate the knowledge into actions too, which I think is the most difficult part, because you can have women like myself. Shit, I'm 35 years old. I'm open and ready. I'm ready to settle down. I'm ready to get married. But I feel like it's not my role to go up to a man and ask him out. I mean, where are the African American men who know how to be a man, who can take the role of a man and ask a woman out? Yes, I've been asked. It's not that, okay, men don't notice me, of course. But when it comes down to the personal level and us conversing, us getting to know each other, it's just, we got to speak the same language. I talk to a number of African American men, even African men, but if your mind, man, we got to be on the same plane. We got to be on the same frequency, man. And a lot of people they're not on the same frequency. They want to sit up here and feed into the white supremacy, and they talk Jesus, and I get it. That's your crutch. That's something that maybe keeps you on the straight and narrow, right? So that you stay out of trouble. I've heard that a lot, where a lot of black men say, well, I go to church and I believe in God because it works for me. I get it, but come on. If you put that above your own blackness, your own African self, something is wrong. I feel like we're African first at the end of the day. And if I can find a very conscious African-centered man, then hey, I'm good to go. But we will be a force to be reckoned with, because I think that's the biggest threat to the structure, the system, is having a African-centered, pro-black, Pan-African woman with a African-centered, pro-black man. They come together and they build family and they stay together. Like, just imagine what that would be like. We don't really have that. We have a lot of whitewash the families that do stick together, because there's a lot of black families that are very successful, have kids and all, and the man and woman still married. But where their mindset at, though? Are they trying to build up and strengthen the black community? Are they pro-black? Are they Pan-African? Or are they just for themselves? A lot of black people don't really think in terms of the community. They just think in terms of, oh, this is my family, right? As long as my family good, that's all what matters. I don't know how beneficial is to that. So the question as to, because I have to answer this question, as to whether or not a black woman can submit to a white man. I think a black woman can submit to anybody, especially given our history. Honestly, I think it's easier for a black woman to submit to a white man. I'm talking about our history in terms of African American history, being descendants of slaves. That's part of our DNA. So submission is real easy, I think. I mean, we've been there, done that. I mean, a lot of Africans, I don't think they really know. Y'all have to go and watch some of the movies. And it's good they make movies about what slavery looked like, but a lot of y'all don't really know the gravity of what life was like for African Americans back then, man, during slavery. It was bad. Treated less than human. The white master sleeping with and raping the black women, taking advantage of them, raping the black men in front of their wives, making them, like, stripping them of their sexuality, their manhood. Yes, that intergenerational trauma is passed on from generation to generation. We have to also be mindful that slavery, it wasn't too long that slavery ended. Back in the 1800s, it seemed like it's so long ago, but it's not. And the same trauma that slaves experienced back then is just passed down through the generations. So I can't wait to share my research with y'all, because my research, and I've done a lot of research, it focuses on that intergenerational trauma and how that really plays out. A lot of scholars have talked about it. Dr. Joy DeGruy, her last name is spelled Gruy, Dr. Joy DeGruy. Look her up. JoyDeGruy. She's an African American woman. She talks about the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Her book is very powerful, and I cite her book throughout my literature review for my PhD. It's deep, y'all. It's not to make excuses, but for you guys to be able to conceptualize, okay, why is it that black men sag their pants? Why is it that black men don't take care of their responsibilities and take care of their children, turn against their, baby mamas, or make black women baby mamas? Like, why is it that there's self-hate? Why is it that black mothers berate their children? Like, a lot of this stuff does stem from slavery, and people say, oh, well, slavery happened so many years ago. Y'all don't understand, like, the past affects the present. And I was trying to get this person that I was talking to, I had to cut him off because it was just so frustrating, because this African, like, y'all don't be understanding. And he's like, oh, just put the past behind you. Just get rid of don't think about the past. Don't dwell on the past. I was like, dude, if it was that easy, black people would be a lot further off, or further than where we are now, better off than where we are. If it's not that easy, it's easy for you to say, oh, just don't think about it. Just, dude, it's hard to say that, number one, when the past is still the present. Not much has changed. Like, I feel like Africans are so aloof to the fact that slavery has been redefined. It has been reinvented. So, yes, we don't live in physical chains, but we're still in chains. It's a reason why black people speak from a position of the victim. As if we're losing, like as if we're powerless. It's a reason why that. It's not, yes, part of it is because that's just a psyche that has been passed down from generation to generation. So when you have the slaves, let's say they have children, they're going to talk to the children as if they're still a slave. Those children grow up. They have this mentality embedded in them. It's been internalized in them. They pass that on to their children. They pass that on to their children and their children and their children. And you can still see those same patterns exist today, where black parents still talk to their kids as if the slave master talked to their slave. It's like almost as if we're still living back in those times, but you have Africans say, oh, just forget about it. You can't just forget about it. It's not something that you just forget about. Number one, we are descendants. Those are our ancestors. We are descendants of slaves. Those are our ancestors. How can you just say, oh, forget about them? They are part of us. You don't forget about people who are part of you. So that's a very ignorant statement to say, number one, forget about the history, when your history is connected to the people who lived during those times. And those people are your ancestors. They are you. If anything, you honor them. I honor the slaves. Because if it wasn't for them fighting through and resisting, we would not be here. They endured so much, and that's the reason why we're still here. Even when slavery ended, it was so much shit they had to go through. A lot of y'all don't even know. And I told him, I said, have you ever been to the National African American Museum in D.C.? Oh, no. I'm like, well, dude, you have a lot to learn. Like, you are speaking from a very limited perspective. You don't know much. I hate to call you ignorant, but you are very ignorant to a lot of things that are really important if you're going to be in America. Because a lot of y'all want to come over here. I get it. You want to live the American dream. Nothing wrong with that. But please understand that you're going to come across African Americans like myself, and for you to speak from this very narrow perspective, you're going to run into some issues, and it's very offensive. It's very offensive because what y'all don't fail to realize is that we built this country. Our ancestors built this country. We are descendants of people who built this country for free. And we wonder why we're still at the bottom, because we work for free. And the system, being that has been established, has been set a certain kind of way, how can we catch up when we haven't really been allowed to? People say, oh, well, we have a black president. You guys, that is an illusion of winning. That's an illusion of success, of progression. That's not the reality. When you're talking about, oh, well, we have black celebrities who are basketball players, football, they're millionaires, they're celebrities who have, that's only a very small portion of the black population in America. And even they themselves are still slaves to that system that they are a part of. Like, y'all don't understand. This is not just black people speaking as if, like we have this false sense of who we are and we don't know. This is the truth. This is very much true. Now, can we break from it? Yes, we can, but we need the help of everybody. No one wants to be a victim. No one wants to keep saying, oh, well, we don't have power, we can't do this, and white people are in control. But, I mean, if it's true, it's true. They do have power. White people have political, economic power. It's meaning who owns everything in America? White people. Hello, like who owns the freaking social media platform we're using? White people. It's like we have to come together. Now, granted, it's a lot of Africans, which I have much respect for. They create a lot of things too in Africa. But we have to not sell our shit, because what I'm learning is that a lot of Chinese people coming in, they're taking over and they buying up Africa. So how can we even leverage a sense of power within this global system if you have the people that black Americans are relying on in Africa? Y'all are turning against the whole mission, and you partnering with Chinese people. We ain't gonna have shit. We ain't not gonna own nothing. And that is a form of slavery, when you always gotta answer to someone. They own everything. They own all the resources. They control all the resources. That is a form of slavery. Economic slavery, political slavery. You may not be in chains, but you still are not free. Any country who has been colonized and you had to fight for your freedom, your ass ain't free. Even if you think that you've been free, you still not free. That country that colonized you still controls and owns you. They change your language. African people speaking English. Okay, on one hand, that's a good thing, because we are all able to kind of unite. If African people, African American like myself, be able to communicate with them, if we didn't both speak English, so that's a good thing. But we have to learn how to use the things that have kind of disadvantage us in terms of stripping us of our culture, use it to our advantage to unite. That's the goal. That's the reason why. That is my passion. You guys can see I'm very passionate about this topic, because it boils down to our survival. And I think it's the ancestors that's calling out, screaming out, and saying, come on, y'all. It ain't about us integrating. Integration, it sounded nice. The idea that MLK fought for, it sounded nice. Oh, let's just unite and be one human race and integrate and... Okay. But the reality, y'all, that's not the name of the game that they're playing. I think naturally, as African people, we are good-hearted people. We don't want to do harm to nobody. We don't want to make another race feel inferior. But if that's a game that these people are playing, how can we make sure that we survive? Because it does matter how society perceives you. It does matter politically where we stand, socio-economically and politically, where we stand. It does matter. It affects our psyche. It affects our health, our well-being. But you know what? I'm about to go. Like I was saying, to wrap this video up, unfortunately, yes, it's easy for African American women to submit to a white man in the context of white supremacy. I mean, or in the context of racism. Yes, if that's all she feels that she has to rely on. But I don't feel like, I haven't given up hope. So yes, I'm 35 years old. I'm still single. I don't have any kids, but I feel like there's always hope, you know. And then, like my friend said, just come to Africa and find a lot of African men over there. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like a lot of African men are coming to America, so I don't really have to go to Africa necessarily to find a husband per se, because a lot of y'all coming over here, and what I'm realizing, a lot of y'all just Europeanized, man. And y'all think that that's the way to go, but it's not. But I wish you guys a great evening, and I'll catch you guys later.